Caitlin Huey-Burns is a national political reporter for RealClearPolitics. Caitlin, welcome. So a CBS News poll out today shows 25% of adults approve of Donald Trump's response to the Orlando massacre, while 36% approve of Hillary Clinton's response. Yet in a Bloomberg Politics poll, people said they have more confidence in Trump to handle a situation similar to what we saw in Orlando. What do you make of that juxtaposition?
It's pretty startling because we've seen in polls over the past several months that voters in these polls say that Trump does a better job on terrorism and national security issues. And that's mostly because of his rhetoric. They like kind of how he is responding. They see him as strong on those issues. But then we saw the actual response, and that was also registered the way that he didn't, he went on a different route perhaps than they had envisioned. You had a lot of Republicans this week hoping that Trump would go after Clinton and Obama on foreign policy and on national security, issues that they think that the president and subsequently they think Hillary Clinton will not be as strong on. Instead, he doubled down on his call for the Muslim ban, which actually was popular among Republicans in the primary. We're seeing now, of course, in a general election, it's not viewed favorably. And this is kind of representative of the shift that the party and Trump is experiencing moving into the general.
But also Republicans are distancing themselves from some of the things that he said. We've got Paul Ryan. He denounced the anti-Muslim rhetoric. Bob Corker seemed uneasy. Mitch McConnell refused to comment altogether. And these are all people who have endorsed Donald Trump. So what do you make of that?
Right, exactly. Every day they are finding they're struggling to support him. And this is really important because every time that Trump stirs up controversy, says something out of bounds, he doesn't have the support within his party in terms of major leaders, lawmakers, public figures to come out and support him. He doesn't have that traditional infrastructure either. So he is kind of relying on his base of support, which we are seeing is not as strong in a general election as we saw in the primary.
So let's clear something up for our viewers so that they understand. Donald Trump keeps saying he wants to bring America back, but it's a question of bringing the Republican Party back, right? I mean, I just heard Donald Trump say people are afraid to go out into the streets. And I recall after 9/11, one of the most horrific days in our nation's history, that President George W. Bush said to all of us here in our country, go out, live your lives, do not be afraid. And also, it was George W. Bush who himself refused to use the term radical Islam. He said to not paint Islam, the peace-loving people that would not seek to do us harm, with a broad brush. You were talking that you went back and looked at some of those speeches. How do you distinguish between what we saw then in the Republican Party and what we see now?
It's a very different party and it's a very different time. And Republicans have argued over the past year or so that we're in a different situation than we were then. However, you saw Hillary Clinton in her speech responding to the Orlando attacks, quoting George W. Bush's response to 9/11. Quoting how he encouraged people to continue on, to unite as a people, and also talking about how he didn't want to declare war on a religion. And so that's a line that she's been threading throughout the campaign, actually, because Republicans have been really going after Democrats, particularly the president, for not using the term radical Islam. And they say that that's representative of what they perceive as a weakness on behalf of the administration, not naming the enemy and that sort of thing. And Clinton has been trying to, remind Republicans that the past president of their party didn't want to do that either. So it is a really remarkable contrast. And Trump shows no signs of changing tune. And he's hoping that the public responds to him if this kind of thing happens again.
Right.
And that's the funny thing about elections, or the chaotic thing about elections, is that you can do all the polling that you want, all of the events that you want, all of the campaigning that you want. If something happens in the days leading to the election, that changes the whole dynamic.
Right, the sort of strongman approach versus perhaps the comforter-in-chief.
Exactly.
Hillary Clinton's approach. Speaking of the Democrats and Hillary Clinton, it looks like maybe Clinton and Bernie Sanders are at least coming together on one thing. They want to stop Donald Trump.
Right.
Could we be seeing maybe a unified front shortly, and I know he says he's going to go all the way to convention, but maybe he may endorse her before that?
Right. Well, they had a positive meeting. They talked about issues like the minimum wage, getting money out of politics. They talked about policy, and they are showing a united front so far. After California's primary, he really stopped campaigning against her. And so even if he stays in the race, you can expect him to use his position. He obviously wants to shape the party, shape the platform, but he doesn't want to bring the party down. And so the Clinton campaign is thinking even if he stays through the convention, he can act more as a unifying force than the opposite. The other thing about Sanders is that he doesn't have as much sway as he perhaps would have maybe a month ago. He has lost the past several elections. He was behind in the popular vote as well as pledged delegates. There's talk that maybe if he would have had this meeting a month ago, would have had more influence. Also, as the conversation changes to national security and terrorism and foreign policy, perhaps, those are not Sanders' strengths. So he has been left out of the conversation in that regard.
And she ended up winning yesterday in Washington, D.C. by numbers even greater than President Obama himself won.
Exactly.
And so, again, just sort of driving that point home.
Absolutely.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.